Okay guys, today the object is pruning, and we're going to try and turn a grapevine like this into a grapevine like these guys. Now the idea of pruning is that we establish an upright, fairly open canopy without too many canes crossing over each other, and not too many leaves per square metre. We want, even in the middle of summer, some sunlight to filter through onto the fruit so that we don't get disease. We also want to make sure that we fill up this wire as much as possible, this is the fruiting wire, with as many fruit bearing shoots as we can, so that we can get a good decent crop off the vines. So you've got a couple of objectives when you're pruning. You're setting your crop level, and you're also determining the breathability and the visibility through the canopy, which determines the amount of disease that you're going to get in the vineyard. So let's have a look at how we cane prune this vine. Okay, so before I start pruning, you'll notice that I'm wearing safety glasses. You should always wear these while you're in the vineyard, especially while you're learning. It's really important. I have seen guys have to go to hospital because they had their eye flicked with a cane. Just on a safety note, you're not to whip each other with these at any point of time, nor throw anything at each other while you're in the vineyard, because these canes do have sharp edges on them, and they will catch in your eye and things like that. They can cause cuts and bleeding, and that's the last thing we want. So at all times, you're to think of each other's safety, and you're not to use the canes to whip each other with or chase each other with or anything silly like that. Alright, so we're going to try and turn this into that, and there's a couple of important rules before we get started. The first is I need good, strong, healthy canes to choose to work with. They need to come out of the crown. Now the crown is the top part of the trunk of the vine. It's the part where we want all the new shoots to emerge. I don't want to choose shoots, say like this one, that are coming off a spur or another section of old shoot from the crown. I want to always try and come back to the crown wherever possible. My crown should be about a handspan or a secateur length, good handspan below the fruiting wire. This is called a handspan rule. You guys are going to be asked about this on your tests. Your crown should always be about a handspan below the wire. This allows you to have a nice open crown, and it also allows you to bend the canes without snapping them. If the crown's up too high, you'll snap your canes off all the time. The other thing we want to achieve is we want 2 new fresh canes that have grown last year wrapped down onto the wire. This is how we do cane pruning. So what we want to achieve is we want nice tight wrapping of 2 new fresh canes. So that means that the old canes from last year, and you'll see they're old canes because they've got bark on them, they need to be removed. And before we go and cut anything, the best thing to do is choose the canes you want. Now I'm going to choose this cane here because it's pencil thick, it's long enough, and the internodal space, or the difference, the distance between the 2 nodes, is 3 inches or less. The next thing we want is we want to make sure that we've got one cane going in one direction and another cane going in the other. So these are obviously the 2 that I'm going to choose. You might turn to me and say, I want to choose this one and that one. Really, at the end of the day, the decision is yours, but always try and go with the healthiest, strongest, thickest material with the best internode spacing. So both of these are pencil thick, they're both a handspan below the fruiting wire, and they both come from the crown. That's what we want. So a bit like a sculptor, I've now chosen what I want. Now we can remove everything else. There's one last thing I'm going to do, and that is I'm going to leave a spur down on the crown for next year. So I want another option for some shoots to emerge that I can use next year. So I'm going to choose the best placed cane that I'm not wrapping down to create my spur, in which case it'll probably be this one here. So I'll cut that to a spur, leaving 2 nodes. There's one down here, one here, that's my spur, and I simply now remove the rest. Now when I'm removing old growth, I don't want to cut it like this and leave little knobs. You've got to come right back to the crown, as tight as you can come, and remove as much of that old wood as you can, because what you're doing is you're removing all of what we call the blind buds. So when I'm cutting across the wire, you'll see this has been wrapped around the wire. I don't cut across like that with my secateurs or I'll damage them. I come in from the side so that I'm only cutting the wood. And you can tell people who are thinking about what they're doing because they come back with nice, clean, undamaged secateurs. If your secateurs have dints in the blade, you've been cutting across the wire, not diagonally to it. Alright, so we'll get rid of all the old stuff here that we don't need. Cutting in nice and close once again, removing all the trash and just leaving the stuff that I really, really want. Clean up the trunk as well at the same time. So now you'll see that I'm left with pretty much what I need. Now I can get rid of stuff that's in the way here, but I don't want to cut too much into the next vine until I've figured out what I'm going to use. So I'm just going to clear up to about here, just so that I can see what I'm working with. Alright, so there's my grapevine pruned. Now, when I come to wrapping down, this is the next part. When you're wrapping down, if you just get your cane and just twist it over the wire, it'll break here every single time. Instead of that, what you have to do is a two-handed job. You have to hold the grapevine cane like this and bend it across your hand. And you notice I'm pulling it up a little bit too, so I've got a one hand span space between the two when I'm finished. So I pull it like that and then I twist it around the wire. Now these are very close planted grapevines, incredibly close planted, but normally I'd want to try and get 2 to 3 twists out of it. Then I cut through the last node, leaving a bit of a lump, and that'll be to secure my cable tie. On this side here, I'm going to cut through the last node, leaving a bit of a lump. I'm going to hold. Now I came from this side of the wire with this cane, so I'm going to come from this side of the wire with this cane. I'm going to hold it carefully with my hand, and I'm going to give it a couple of twists around. Now you notice I'm not screwing the cane around like that, I'm holding it straight and I'm just wrapping it around the wire. This has got to meet the next vine, and so we'll cut off the last node, leaving a bit of a lump behind to secure our cable tie. And there is our grapevine pruned. All I now need to do is tie off the two ends with cable ties so the wind doesn't blow it off in springtime, and we're done. Okay guys, so here's a head cam view of the same thing. Pardon me moving around a bit. Now this is the next grapevine down, so we've just pruned that one there. This time we're going to have a look at this one. Now we want the crown to be about a handspan below the wire if at all possible. Now this time it's going to make it a little bit harder for us. We've got one good candidate here, and we can see as we go up, yes, he's long enough to reach and he's coming out of the right place. But where's my other candidate? These guys are too low. This guy's coming off an old spur, and so's this guy. So what I have to do is I have to sort of decide to make the best of a bad situation. So in this case, which one of these canes is pencil thick, as close to the crown as possible, comes the closest to fulfilling the rules? Well, it's this one, because this one starts out a little bit closer to the crown than this one, and it's going in the right direction, isn't it? I've got one cane going off in this direction, one cane going off in that direction. I've got good internodal spacing. They're both pencil thick. They're both as close to the crown as practicable. So I've made my choice. Now what I can do is I can leave behind a spur for next year's shoots in the right location. So hopefully next year I'll be better off. I can get rid of all the other stuff down here. Now you'll notice I'm cutting nice and close into the grapevine. I don't want to leave, this is what I hate, I don't want to leave stuff like that behind, because I'm going to get extra shoots growing from here. And the whole point of pruning is that we're setting our crop level. If we leave too many shoots on the vine, we'll overcrop and the fruit won't get ripe enough to make good wine. So we actually need to leave about 10 to 12 buds on either side. And that's the ideal cropping level for cool climate Cabernet down where we are. Different varieties in different locations would use different cropping levels. So I can cut this guy off here. Now you notice I'm cutting alongside the wire, not across it, because I don't want to damage my secateurs. I'm then cutting these guys out here, removing that. I can then remove this. Now I'm only going to cut it to there, and I'll show you why. I'm going to leave myself a bit of a backup plan. If I'm silly or I'm just learning, it's always wise to leave myself a backup plan until I'm finished. So I'll cut this guy off there like that, and I can cut that guy there. Now I'm left with my pruned grapevine. I'll clean up all my extraneous material. I can cut stuff out that's sort of in the way. You notice I'm being very careful not to cut the vine, the canes that I've chosen that I want to work with. I'm just getting rid of stuff out of my way. There we go. So I've got fairly good thinking room now. Now I'm going to try and bring this guy pretty much to the post and pretty much to this vine on this side. Now you notice he's popped off because I didn't cable tie him before. We're going to cable tie the two together and save half our cost on cable ties. I'll just clean this guy up a little bit. Now, I'm going to want to bring him to about there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut through the last node at a slight angle. See how I'm taking off the bud, but I'm leaving behind the knobbly bit. That's going to secure my cable tie so it doesn't fall off the end. Now, I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to actually wrap this cane on this side of the wire. Now, once again, I'm twisting it in my hand. I'm not just twisting it around the wire or it'll snap. 1, 2, 3 times around. And this guy here, once. I'll probably only get 2 twists out of this guy. Now you'll see, because I've cut through the last bud on both of these, I'm not going to get shoots coming out of here, but I will be getting shoots coming out of there. Now I'm just going to grab one cable tie and put that around the wire. Now, the best way to figure out if you put the cable tie on the right way so it doesn't fall off is just give it a little rub on the back. If you feel the lump of the cable tie on the back, it's around the right way. If you feel that it's smooth, you just need to twist it around. So I've got the lump on the back, I put those through, and my vines are now secured in that position. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up any mess that's there, and that's right to leave. Now, why have I left this third one, you're wondering? What on earth am I doing? Why am I leaving that there? I'll explain to you in a minute. Remember, this was our cane of choice. So we're going to come down, we're going to trim it. I don't need all of that space. I'm going to trim it a little bit. Now, I came from this side of the wire, see that? So that means this is up a bit higher, I don't have to shift it, I can come from this side of the wire. Now, if I just pull down like that, I'll break it right there. So I support it with my hand, and I move the cane around like so. Now, that's wrapped down perfectly well. I've got about a handspan here. I've got, well, sort of a handspan there. I've had to break the rules a little bit, as I explained to you before. I don't need this one now. That one hasn't broken. If you're learning how to do this, you will break a few. So it makes sense to leave one spare cane until you're finished. Have I finished? Are they wrapped down properly? Why, yes indeedy they are. Good night. Now my grapevine is finished. As you see, probably not quite conforming to the rules that I showed you on this one. Nice handspan here, not a nice handspan here, but we've done our best with what we had. We've followed the rules as best we could. And that's the talent of pruning, is that every single grapevine's different and the job never gets boring.